breakthroughs are made. It's not going after these important things. It's not competing with other people. If you're competing with other people, 100 other groups who think this is important, then you've only got a 1% chance of making the breakthrough. So do what you're interested in doing. Don't worry about others. Of course, you've got to convince people to give you the money to do it. Well, work hard on that, and then piggyback your real interest on top of this thing.
And you also once said that science is misunderstood in many ways.
Yeah.
Can you elaborate on that, please?
Well, the first that young people, and the iconic image of a scientist is really Einstein as an old guy with long hair, when in fact he was, he was a young man with very short hair when he made the big breakthroughs. So that's the first misunderstanding of who the scientists are. The second part is much more serious one, and that is that science is not understood by anyone, particularly people who are journalists. And that is the only 9 out of 10 times when a journalist comes to ask me about it, they ask, what are the applications of your discovery? Now, that's because the only thing understood is not the science itself or what the discovery was, but how it can apply to society. But that's not the way that much science works. The third thing, arguably more important, is how does a scientist discover something that's unknown beforehand, the scientific method, and how is that done? And that's the scientist. But I think there's something much more important than that, at a very deep intellectual, cultural and educational level, and that is to recognize that science is really quite new. It really only goes back about 500 years. Before that it was common sense, and common sense is what you need to survive. But before it was called science, it was called natural philosophy. And the point that I make is natural philosophy is the only construct we have to determine what is true with any degree of reliability. And I think we should teach that to young people in school, and we should teach them to question and ask people, ask their teachers, just a minute, you're telling me this. How do you know it's true? What is the evidence for what you're telling me? And if they can't find evidence, then it's not necessarily true.
Upon his arrival in Hanoi, Professor Kroto has joined a press briefing at Hilton Hanoi Opera. Let's take a look.
As part of the 4th ASEAN Bridges Dialogues Towards a Culture of Peace series, Nobel laureate Professor Kroto was invited to be a speaker during his stay in Hanoi. Known for one of the most important contributions to the development of nanoscience, Professor Kroto hoped to have some impact on Vietnam's education sector.
We have invited Professor Kroto because he's speaking about education as a basis for peace, which is the main theme of the International Peace Foundation. Because we are supporting universities with connecting them with Nobel laureates. We are supporting education and schools because we think that this is the real basis for peace in the future.
Professor Kroto isn't only focused on science. He also has made a lot of efforts to help boost education and science around the world. Answering questions from Vietnamese journalists during the visit, he emphasized the importance of education, saying that it's good for the development of Vietnam in the future.
Your educational system must cater across the spectrum, from those who are in the sciences are good at solving clear, important problems, to others who are good at solving their own problems that no one else has thought of, and then where surprising breakthroughs are made, which will be useful for Vietnam.
During this visit, Professor Kroto met Deputy Prime Minister Nguyen Thiện Nhân and students at the Vietnam National University, Hanoi. This is the first visit of a Nobel laureate in chemistry to Vietnam.
It's not just...
So, how has the Nobel Prize changed your life?
Well, the first thing is that I gave a lot of lectures before, but now I give a lot more lectures, and it's an interesting question. So it has meant that I'm on the road, my wife is on the road, we're both on the road probably 1/3 of the year. And we were in 127 hotel rooms, 127 days in a hotel last year. And I feel a responsibility to, particularly to talk to students wherever I go.
Looking back at your career path so far, have you ever felt that it was tough to get through? What was the biggest challenge that you had to overcome?
Oh, it was very hard. And I mean, personally it was very hard, but got a lot of support family-wise, really a burden of taking off, and I think probably not very good because I worked too much, and certainly at the start over much, and I think to some extent you know, that took the toll on the family a lot more. But I think science is not easy, and it was 100%. I mean, not later on, but certainly at the start to get research going. I didn't know how. I think if I'd known how hard it was, I would have done something else. I've often said it's like going in the ring with Muhammad Ali. And on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, you get knocked out in the first round, you pick yourself up on Friday, maybe you get to the second round. Once a month you get to the third or fourth round. Once a year you get to the 10th round. And if you're incredibly lucky and he sort of has an off day, you might sneak around and knock him on the nose and you get the Nobel Prize. And that's hard to take. And you have to have a certain internal resilience, which most scientists actually have. And not everybody has. And everybody has the supportive family around them that I had.
You made a summer 2012 presentation at the 62nd Lindau Nobel Laureate meeting in Germany. And this annual meeting brings together Nobel laureates and young researchers for integrational inspiration.
Yes.
A key line in your Lindau presentation was, "I'm not here to make you feel comfortable, I'm here to make you think."
Yes.
And so can you tell me a little bit about that experience in Lindau?
Well, I mean, I've been to Lindau many times, and as time has gone on, underneath that has always been to get people to think, because I think it's very important that they don't accept what other people tell them. I also said, this is a quotation which I like very much: if you make people think they're thinking, they love you. But if you really make them think, they hate you. And this is by a journalist, Don Marquis, in the 1930s. I think that the young people who go to Lindau, many of them will go into positions of responsibility, and they'll become leaders. And for me, leadership is about leading young people to think for themselves so that they no longer need to be led.
So we know you're committed to global science education and the development of internet streaming technologies.
Yeah.
Can you tell me a little bit about your success in the field?
Oh, I'm not sure it's successful. I think it's successful, but I started off over 15 years ago making programs for television, BBC television, because they had an open access slot. And in those days the technology was very expensive, and it was quite expensive, and I had to pull in a lot of money to do this. And over 15, 16 years I think we were very successful. But also the internet became very powerful, and I recognized one of the greatest breakthroughs in education was Wikipedia. However, it seems to me it's objective. What we're trying to do is go into the next step from Wikipedia and subjectivity. I want to see the person who created a particular idea. I like to see young people trying to teach. And they don't even need to have a lot of experience. I just want to see their enthusiasm for that. We're distributing an idea so that schools, universities, individual teachers can contribute this, recording themselves, explaining particular concepts that they've developed, Everybody sees something in a different way. We're looking at the same object, the same idea, the same story, and they interpret it in different ways. And I think life is about that. Life is about human beings. And so I want to put subjectivity into Wikipedia, and we're doing that not just with teachers, not just with professors, not just with Nobel Prize winners, but with young kids who are 6, 7, 10 years old. And they all come with their own little ideas with this. And perhaps they're a bit half-baked, but that's great, because they are now creating. Because education is not just about teaching kids what is known, but it's actually uncapping their creative potential as much as possible. And that's what we're trying to do.
During his stay in Vietnam this time, Professor Kroto, Chemistry Nobel laureate, visited the Vietnam National University, where he gave a talk on education, the basis of peace and the key to an enlightened global community. Let's take a closer look.
Professor Kroto's arrival marked the second time that Vietnam National University Hanoi had the honor to be visited by a Nobel laureate since last December. Before giving his lecture, Professor Kroto was presented the honorary doctorate by the university leaders. This was considered a milestone in the strategy to improve science education and development in the education sector.
Hiện nay là chúng tôi đang chọn khoa hóa học để xây dựng cái khoa đầu tiên trong Đại học Quốc gia Hà Nội đạt chuẩn quốc tế. Thì rất may lần này thì chúng tôi được đón một cái nhà khoa học được giải thưởng Nobel về khoa học. Chúng tôi thấy rằng qua cái dịp này thì những cái hoài bão, những cái đam mê khoa học của sinh viên khoa học của trường Đại học Khoa học Tự nhiên Đại học Quốc gia Hà Nội sẽ được tăng lên rất nhiều.
Instead of spending time to explain how his research won him a Nobel Prize, Professor Kroto told students stories of his life, his other passions such as graphic design and sport, and his experiences in choosing a career. He said that being passionate about the things you like can only lead to good results. That's one of the key pieces of advice Professor Kroto gave to the Vietnamese students.
If it was for this design, I would have been quite happy not winning the Nobel Prize, okay? I was very happy with my science before we made the discovery. I felt I was a success. I didn't go into science to win any prizes, let alone the Nobel Prize. And that's very important, because I see here in Asia, how do you win a Nobel? I don't know. I just do what I'm interested in. If it turns out something special comes, then maybe the Nobel Prize will come.
I'm sure that they have...
Nguyễn Khánh Hưng is among the chemistry faculty's many students that listen to Professor Kroto. Seeing a big name in chemistry in person sparked a passion for science among Hưng and his peers.
Sinh viên mà học về ngành khoa học thì ai cũng có vẻ khó, nhưng mà thứ nhất hôm nay được gặp cái người gọi là đã từng đạt giải Nobel thì em thấy thích thú, em quyết định là đến.
Khi biết được là quá trình phấn đấu của ngài thì em cảm thấy rằng là mình càng phải cố gắng hơn nữa, cũng như là một niềm sức mạnh để truyền cho em là cảm thấy được rằng là mình phải cố gắng hơn nữa để có thể biết đâu sau đấy là sẽ là sinh viên Việt Nam thì hoàn toàn có thể đạt được giải Nobel nào đó trong tương lai.
It could well be a long time before Professor Kroto has another chance to meet Vietnamese students again. But his words will remain in the mind of these young people, acting as guidelines and driving force for their decisions in the future.
So there it is. I'm only here to make you think. Thank you very much.
In your